You are listening to WXRWLP Milwaukee on 104.1 FM and on riverwestradio.com everywhere. Now you can also listen by telling your smart speaker to play River West Radio. Support for this program comes from Collectivo Coffee and Troubadour Bakery, makers of artisan breads and scratch-baked goodies. Visitors to Collectivo's Bayview Cafe can look in on Troubadour Bakers as they prepare breads and cafe favorites daily. More info is at collectivocoffee.com. Welcome to Cinema Fireside, and if you're listening live, that homeless dude is booking east down the sidewalk looking for additional prey. So it's it's cloudy and gloomy and great, and just thank you, listeners, for listening in. It's great, and I hope that you all are well, and just take an assessment of your life, and it's a cliche, but breathe deeply, regularly, and take account of it all. It's a good life, but you got to maintain it properly. My man Gabe's calling in. Thank you, Gabe, for calling in, undoubtedly, and thank you always for doing your research, Gabe, and your passion for all of this, because that really carries things through. So. It snowed this morning, and just enough for it to stick on the tree branches, which gives this great visually textural appeal, because you have this kind of like tonality between the brown of the branch, the white of the snow. And so I was taking my morning walk, and I thought, man, this is it. This is the last of the snow. I've got this particular camera in this particular format. I better go out and film, so I grabbed the bulky tripod, the camera, and went up and down the trail filming the branches and so on and so forth, which can adequately and invigoratingly be used for opening credits and so on and so forth. So, I mean, there's a plethora of great footage of a variety of in a variety of visual realms to pick and choose from, so that's good. So I think this probably will be the last of the substantial snow, but it was taken advantage of this morning to good effect. Also this morning I finished Emily St. John Mandel's Station 11. She is going to be in Shorewood, not only doing an author appearance speaking about the book, but also doing a writing workshop. So it's always good to bring your own work in that milieu so you can be inspired at the same time. So there's this parallel effect. They're doing their thing, you're doing your thing, but it goes hand in hand. You have the same goals. So it's not about like, oh, well, what could somebody teach me? It's rather it's the environment. It's an environment conducive to your goals. So I very much look forward to that. The book's about 333 pages, and I've got a lot to do in life. So in the cracks and crevices and the interstices of one's daily doings, that book was read. I mean, I know they did a performance at the Three Lions in Shorewood with the high school students reciting some passages from the book and musical performances. So I thought, man, okay, instead of just sitting here, I booked home, got the book, and knocked out some more pages. I knocked out more pages at the grocery store. So early in the morning, just here, there, everywhere, till this morning, softly, quietly, I finished the novel. What's interesting about this is when you read the review, I don't know if I spoke about this last week, it doesn't matter, there is no memory. It's heralded as this dystopian thing, and I think I did speak about this. But anyway, I could care less about that stuff. I could care less about horror, science fiction, fantasy. None of that means anything to me. I just care about women in art. I just care about women in books. That's all I ever cared about in life. I don't care about nothing else. These crackpot ideas about this and that, that's crazy. And when I say this thing, it's meant with no offense to my dear listener at all. I'm just trying to make a point, because there's two types of people in this context: people that are genuinely curious as to who the other person is, and they ask, and then there's the other gang, the other half, who make all these time-consuming assumptions that have to be squashed and so on and so forth, and it's just energy vampirism, time vampirism. And no, actually, I do like speculative fiction. I do thoroughly enjoy Ray Bradbury because it's actually all analogous. But you say something very brash at the outset to dismantle everyone's notions. Then you come back and you meaningfully rebuild it. So yeah, no, I totally dig Ray Bradbury, most definitely. And and I appreciate, again, like I say, the analogous nature of speculative fiction as it relates to our lives of doing dishes and of doing general housekeeping and this and that. So the way you do the dishes is the way you live your life, and it's like you do those dishes, like, damn, man, this place is starting to look good, at least the kitchen sink. So it's just the way you play it. And let's see. So anyway, Station 11 got that tackled, which is great. And again, I was just interested in the contemporary narrative, which again was happening in Toronto and New York and Los Angeles, as it's that great realm of interiority of people's lives and their interrelationships. It's the only thing I care about. This stuff about, like, oh, the earth is ending and all of that stuff. It's like, oh man, no, that's zero interest at all. But a very good book. Actually, I remember when I was a teen, because I liked AM. I liked doing what everybody else didn't do. They were all into their thing. So I'd be listening to AM radio, but then the news would always be coming on, and I thought, man, this stuff is pretty negative. I said, you know what? I don't need this. So for 38 years, I proudly say I have no relationship with the news at all. People say, hey, did you hear? Did you hear? I said, nah, man, I did not, and I never will. Zero interests. Because the news is just something manufactured in boardrooms, based on other people's misery, then exploited. So I don't watch TV, nothing to do with the internet, nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's all garbage. It's the big zero. And if you're offended, good, because it's all crap. It's all garbage. It's the big zero, man. But your life, man, your heart, the air that you breathe, the mind that you're blessed with, the physiology that you enjoy, your mind-body connection, man, it's all great stuff. So, and also, again, I want to thank God for eliminating, like a hydrogen bomb throughout the years, people that have distracted and taken good minutes, hours, days, and years of life. God is good. God is great. He's eliminated those people, not theoretically, but figuratively, from the face of my earth. And he's done this over the years, so it's not like some coincidence that happened twice in 1 hour, but he's been resilient and adamant about eliminating those people. Great thing about that is that he's made so many good people that now you get to enjoy, positivity and productivity. And because two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. So I'm just really thankful for that, for the whole universal schematic of things to have done that. And so better things can be accomplished and better people can be had, which is really cool, man. And I don't talk on the telephone. It's just a big waste of time. It has nothing to do with your life. It's just, maniacal monologues, and forget all of that crap. It's all garbage. It's all waste. Big waste. Get rid of all of that, and you have blessings and good people. And I swear, like, if there's Suki here and Xav and Sarah Lou, and these are all benevolent people, very smart, they're strong, but they're good, and that goodness is a great part of the tapestry of this whole idea called River West Radio and Martin Hallinger and many more that are just positive, proactive forces, man. So that's really good. That's just great stuff. I'm always thankful always thankful to be fortunate, but I'm always concerned, though, about the theory of diminishing returns. And that is because time, you could be supported, encouraged, but man, if you let those days go by, you're back in the same hole all over again. And it's like, man, how do you combat the reality of diminishing returns? Because nobody wants to feel that. So you got to strategize and figure that out. On Monday, I saw my classmates from the university, Stephanie Barber's new film, In the Jungle. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I slept through most of it because I was so tired. And it's avant-garde. That means it's on it's with the advanced guard, experimental, and it's experiential, as in you're literally experiencing it in an existential way. It just exists. Ben and colleague, you guys have a great night. Another Ben's always been a great soul, man, and I appreciate him. So, yeah, so Stephanie Barber, I really dug In the Jungle. Very colorful, very beautiful. But I will say I immediately went to sleep. I was like fighting it for like 10, 12 minutes. And I said, you know what? You only live once. I can't do it. I'm just going to sleep now. And it was a very pleasant experience. I woke back up toward the end kind of and said, yeah, this is still pretty cool, man. So Stephanie Barber, congratulations most certainly on In the Jungle. And Gabe, I'm going to let you on now. I think we have a guest as well. Would that be? Oh, yep, the guest nods. So anyway, Gabe, I'll let you. My man, are you there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you seem to be a very coherent and strong man. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I always try to be, Mark, but like you said, sometimes you just, you make these strong plans to do the strong thing and to just do 120% and get it all done, and then you just you just have, you're in the middle of doing something that you really want to do, and you're like, man, I have to go to sleep. You're like, it's just no, there's no fighting this. If I don't fall asleep, it's just going to be a downhill from right now. This is all going to be downhill, and I'm not even going to be able to give 10%, 12%. It's just the body just all of a sudden just is nope, it's over. It's like a headline for Us Weekly or something, about 7 times a year. It's I'll be in the supermarket and I pass by.
What do you pass by? We are the advocates of non-dead air.
Well, pass by the stand where you're checking out, getting your groceries, getting ready to go, and you just see that Us Weekly headline, it's over, and there's just some meaningless couple that's having some meaningless breakup. And I always think, that phrase just always stands out to me. It's over. And I think, yeah, sometimes it just is. So-and-so from The Bachelor is breaking up with so-and-so from Doctors Gone Wild or something. And you're just like, oh, okay, well.
Well, I'm not, because they're real people with real hearts, probably swimming in the tears of a thousand, horrendous nights. I don't know, man.
Yeah, maybe. But,
no, I mean, everyone's real. So it's like when people say, "Oh, you be in the real world." Well, everything's the real world.
Some of these relationships are complete manufactured to begin with. They're put together by spin doctors. And they're made for headlines. They're not real relationships. It's this stuff like Us Weekly headlines. I give that stuff about 6 cents.
Okay.
But to be fair, Us Weekly, of the tabloids, Us Weekly is the only one that besides People, that actually follows journalistic practices where they actually make sure that they have valid sources and they multi-check their sources and they have people that fact check all their information, and so there's a certain amount of credibility that I guess.
Well, okay, well then they got you covered, man.
But I guess we'll.
Hey, man, I met some dude from Kansas City, and I told him that my colleague on the radio's from Kansas City.
Oh, absolutely. I'm trying to think. There's a handful of people in Milwaukee. Tara, I know, who's associated with the station, and various other members of the video store is from Kansas City, and I always think as I'm kind of wandering around the here and there, I go out to eat at Q39 and go to Char Bar and, kind of go over to Missy B's to hang out, and have, go to this dance club or go to that place or, go here with my girlfriend, go there with my girlfriend, go over to the Alano Draft House or go downtown to Bristol for brunch and this place. I always, every once in a while, it's about once a month, I think back on Tara. I think, man, I wonder if she's ever been here. I wonder if she's ever eaten here. I wonder what her recollection of Westport or of the West Bottoms or of, the East Side or the Northland or this area. Because she always had nothing but real fantastic stuff, Power and Light District. She always had fantastic stuff to say about the city. And so, yeah, that's cool stuff. But getting to the movies, Mark, so this week, I did some... I saw some really cool stuff, but...
And we want to hear about... Can I introduce our guest as well, Gabe?
Yes, absolutely.
And you may notice, man. Can you say hi, sir?
Hi, sir. Yeah, I was I was also at Stephanie Barber's film, The Jungle.
I know who that is. That's Xav Leplae.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness. Everyone, distinguished guest, Xav Leplae.
I'm back. Oh. That's a quote from Sylvester Stallone when he came out. Oh no, not Stallone. Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's what he said when he came out of surgery. His most recent surgery.
Well, he played his cards right, because I remember the dude said any day that he didn't work out, he could never get that day back. Arnold Schwarzenegger is just the pinnacle of success in many areas.
Oh yeah, he's just such an extremist. And it's funny with speaking about that. I've been exercising more lately, and I read that if you take really good care of your health and you eat well, you exercise daily.
You ain't gonna tell us
you don't
live
smoke.
Longer, are you?
You don't smoke cigarettes. You don't. You keep your stress levels down. Do everything perfectly. You'll buy 7 years.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's it. 7 years. I mean, that's
that ain't
like
bad, though. Thank you, Xav. Actually, I appreciate that.
But you get 7 years. You don't get more than 7 years.
Well, but some people, you might get more because, like, let's say you're eating terrible food every day. Like, everything is just processed food. Everything is just like soda and alcohol and beer and cigarettes and crack cocaine. I mean, you're talking about, I know people that have died in their 40s and their 50s. 51, they die of like complications that...
Dude, I'm 51. You're scaring me.
But, at the same time, these are people like lifelong hardcore partiers, and they just, they're like going strong in their 30s, partying like they're 19 years old, and then, 51, 52, they're down. Cigarettes, coffee... coffee ain't too bad for you, but in combination with all this other stuff, you're gone. Arnold Schwarzenegger, is one of those men that, yes, he's had troubled times in his life, but he and Sylvester Stallone are real models for physical fitness and what it can do. I mean, look at those guys. Even in their 50s and 60s, they let themselves go every once in a while because they are in their 60s now. But, Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of the great bodybuilders of all time. I'm not going to say he was the greatest, but his personality was what made him legendary. There were I'd say about 50 men that were in better shape than Arnold, even at his absolute peak, that had a better coordination that were more coordinated in their physique, that were, it's not necessarily about volume, about the grandiosity of his physical form, but it was just about the quality and about the mass. Like Lou Ferrigno, could be said that Lou Ferrigno was a greater bodybuilder than Arnold around that time. There was another guy, his last name was Colombo. Some people state that he's the greatest athlete and bodybuilder of all time, but because he didn't have Arnold's charm and knack for politics, within the bodybuilding world, that he didn't rise to the stardom levels that Schwarzenegger did. One thing that Schwarzenegger also did was he always wrote down people's names whenever he met them and would memorize them. He'd go to some party and meet some random person. Afterwards, he would go to the bathroom and write down on a notepad. He'd be like, okay, I just met 6 people. I met him and his daughter, and he's got a daughter who's just about to turn 7, and she's into ponies, and she likes like chocolate milk. And I just met the governor of Nebraska, and he likes yellow chairs and Pepsi soda. And then he would go home at night, every night, and he would memorize these statistics. You know, every night he'd go over his list of recent acquaintances. And when he knew that he was going to meet these people again, he would go over his list. He had this long, typed-out list and handwritten. He had two separate lists. The ones of people that he was likely to run into, again, recently, like in the near future, and people that he's like, you never know. And when he would go over these lists and their the things that they were into. And I'll tell you, when he would meet people, they would just be stunned that he would remember their name. He would remember the people that were important to them. He would remember things that they were into. And he would ask them, how are you doing? How are those ponies coming along? Did your daughter ever graduate at grammar school? I know she was having trouble, remembering this detail or that detail. That's the reason that Arnold was such a great politician and such a great bodybuilder, was because that charm, that sweetness. And it was also the fact that Arnold was just, he exuded healthiness. He exuded life. He exuded this quality of goodness. And people wanted to be around him because he was always in a good mood. He was happy. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that he worked out every day. He ate a really healthy, really clean diet, and he made people feel good. There's nothing wrong with that. I've always admired Arnold Schwarzenegger for that quality, that he's always been able to have that charming lifestyle, and he reaps some of the benefits of it.
Thank you very much, Gabe. And Xav, I'd like you to add to that.
I would just like to say, since this is a film show, there's Schwarzenegger, represents a whole era. He makes me think of the beginning of video stores and VHS tapes. You're going to find Arnold Schwarzenegger in some of the big blockbuster movies of the early 1980s. But one of the great Schwarzenegger films that maybe less people are aware of is Pumping Iron. Have you guys both seen Pumping Iron?
It's one of my all-time favorite documentaries, and among people that are into fitness and lifting weights, that is the greatest documentary of all time, like without a doubt. Among bodybuilders, that film is like legendary.
Yeah, I mean, even among just documentaries, it's an amazing documentary, and it doesn't necessarily paint him in a great light, but I think it it paints you still come away thinking he's a pretty interesting guy.
Yeah, it's definitely what it does is it shows him it shows the manipulator in Schwarzenegger in his earlier career, when he was really egotistical, and he talks very openly in that film about how he can destroy someone's credibility or someone's image by just like the famous scene where he talks about psyching someone out, how he'll get into a fellow bodybuilder's head and convince them that they're not in good shape, or that they're not. And he's like, these bodybuilders, they'll be superior to me in like 10 ways. And I will think, I have to destroy this person. I have to beat this guy. I have to convince him that he's lesser than me. So I will charm him and let him think that I'm his friend. And then I will suggest, oh, your shoulders really aren't in great shape. Or, oh man, you really should have done more work on your back. Or oh man, you're all disproportionate. And then they'll go out there and they'll underperform. And Schwarzenegger, with that legendary charm, and he'll win over the judges too, because he used to do that with the judges. He would remember what their family was into, what their personal hobbies were. He would charm these people, and then of course he'd win. And Pumping Iron, the film, definitely shows the manipulator and the politician that he was and that he would become. Governor of California,
right? And not just governor of California, but someone from a whole different country becoming governor of California. Not even American. I mean, he's American, probably naturalized, but That's kind of an amazing thing for someone to come from a whole other country, learn the language, and then become governor of the biggest state in the country. That's an amazing feat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, our man was focused for sure.
Yeah. So Xav, it's really cool to have you on. I remembered inviting you, and I remembered, I remembered that you were going to be out of town for a while. So like I kind of forgot that you were coming on.
Well, I actually said I was going to come on in the end of March, but I wasn't able to do it. But it just so happened that today I'm covering for Sarah Lou, so
Sure.
I had I'm here, so I figured, well, I might as well come on the show. But I might have to leave for intermittently because I'm still running
Sure.
the store, and we do have a customer.
Yeah,
So-
no, I think it's exciting. You get to stand up, you get to sit down, you get to do a variety of things. So I think the apologies it's a mere formality, but I think
Well, I could talk a little bit of crossover here. Just a few moments ago, if you were listening live, a friend of mine from the sauna came in and was on Suki's Diner, and his name is Tim Voss. He's a chef, and I met him in the sauna at the Shorewood Pool, and we've been chatting on and off for a couple weeks now, or I should say a couple months. We meet it's just happenstance. We just happen to meet in the sauna, and we always have really great conversations. And one day I said, you should be on River West Radio because you know so much about cooking, and so he was on today. So it's been kind of fun.
Oh, wow. Well, you just never know what you're going to run into or what's going to happen, especially with community radio. I just remembered, I'd come into the store, I'd check out different radio shows, and I'd hear people that I'd met years ago when I first moved to Milwaukee, and you just run into people coming off of one show, and you'd be like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" Someone you used to work with or someone you used to know. Just super cool stuff. I love just checking into the station randomly, just going online and checking River West Radio randomly and just seeing what's happening. In terms of cinemas, we're getting into the early days of...
My man, that'll be by proxy because he is no longer with us.
Okay.
I mean,
sure, no
he
problem.
didn't pass away. He just stayed on the stage.
Sure. Well, we're into the early days, listeners. We're into the early days of 2018. So January through April is usually kind of a dead zone, but there's always these very mysterious wonders that come out of nowhere. There's usually I'd say about 10 to 15 strongly reviewed films that come out, usually films that had come out, like films that were at Cannes the last year or at Sundance that get released intermittently. And so you get these sort of pop-up, well-reviewed films, or these films that are, these art films that come up just randomly. January sometimes can have some very surprisingly strong films. April is notorious for having really bad movies that the studio doesn't know what to do with, so they all just kind of collectively release their garbage all at once so they don't have to compete with each other's crap. But this April has been surprisingly fruitful. So A Quiet Place, which seems to be representative of Paramount Pictures' new structure, which instead of big budget, big money, big, let's throw all of our money into everything all at once, Paramount is going smaller, and it's smart. They're putting their money, and I was watching this film, A Quiet Place, in the theater yesterday, and it's good. It's not great, but it's a smart film that's reliant on ideas rather than money. And it does utilize special effects, like it is about creatures, there's an asteroid that's crashed into Earth, and there are creatures that are wandering, but the film is about a premise that these creatures hunt by sound. So the whole film is mostly silent. And the dominant form of communication in the film is sign language. And even the sign language is intermittent. So most of the film is through gesture and wordless communication, and all of the character development is mostly just this very spaced out, very quiet, very just sort of it's a very European feeling film compared to the average big, dumb American film that you're going to see where it's just a bunch of, big explosions and a bunch of stuff that means nothing. It's a film that's deliberate. It was thought out. It was well planned, and it was written deliberately. So John Krasinski, who is mostly known through his work as an actor on The Office, has actually become a more astute filmmaker in the last few years. He developed a film by David Foster, adapted from a David Foster Wallace book a few years ago. And he clearly is an intelligent presence. He's a director to look out for. And, considering that on the surface, you're like, oh, it's a film about, these monsters or something. And the monsters are hardly on screen in the whole film. It's just about the lurking terror of a family that know sign language because they have a deaf child, so they know how to communicate through sign language already. So that is the one-up that you've like, oh, that's how they've learned to survive because they know how to communicate wordlessly with each other. And that ease of them communicating without speaking, without making noise, is done very effectively. It's a smart film. I watched it with a packed theater yesterday, and, just everyone in the theater is just rapt, looking at the film, watching every single cue. It was great to watch a film with a mainstream average audience that's really wrapped up in all the cues and all the language of cinema that a director is unfolding and speaking and telling. It was super cool to just be in the presence of an audience that is under the spell of a filmmaker speaking the language. And I'm watching that film and I'm thinking, well, there's not really anything in here that's avant-garde. There's nothing that's really artistic per se, but man, is this really working? You have a concept that is actually working, and it's worth attempting, and it's paying off. And that in itself is worth like 10 other films, 20 other films, where you have this dumb stuff that's happening for some dumb reason, and it goes from dumb point A to dumb point B, and at the end, everyone said a bunch of dumb stuff, and you're like, okay, well, I guess the film was effective in that it went from point A to point B, but what did I gain from the film? What emotional qualities? What happened to the characters? What happened in the screenplay? Was this actually a work of art? Was this effective as a piece of storytelling? And more often than not, I was talking about this with my girlfriend, it's one or the other. It's like, okay, this was an effective work of art, or this was an effective work of commerce, like entertainment. And when I like films, like when I can honestly say, like, I recommend this movie, and I was thinking about what I say on the show to, the audience that listens to the show, whether it's someone that listens to the show every week or someone that only listens to the show intermittently or happens to catch it. When I recommend a film, it's either like a mainstream film, like a mainstream Hollywood product that actually works despite its obvious shortcomings as being just another film that's doing the same thing in a slightly different way, that I can say it works as an effective piece of entertainment. It will work if you're okay with watching a romantic comedy, if you're okay with watching a stoner comedy, an action film, a war film, a film that works under the pretenses and labels of it's directed by this, it's starring this, and it's about this, and it goes through the motions doing this. There's always a pretense in the Hollywood packaging of a movie, and that is the entertainment side of films. So usually a film works as just a piece of entertainment, or it works as a piece of art. And when a film is like, this really precise piece of art, I don't look at it with the same light and the same microscope as a work of entertainment. So usually the crossover is like, if a film can do both, like I respect this film, I can learn something about the craft of filmmaking and writing and storytelling from this film. There's something unique and individual and even at times even profound about this film, but it also keeps me just loose, engaged, laughing, feeling all these like rando sort of low, like average denominator emotions and feelings and sensations. It's always one or the other. So when a film can cross over like that and do both effectively, I'm just like, yes, this is it. Commercial art. And I have to say that A Quiet Place it's commercial art. I know I talked about the film Annihilation on the show a few weeks ago. Another film that I would say is effective as commercial art. Now, that film is straight up pretentious in the fact that it is so obviously trying to be an abstract, bizarre, Byzantine film that does not have definitive answers or conclusions. Like, that's a film that's more modeled after a film like Under the Skins or 2001: A Space Odyssey or Solaris, the original Solaris. That's an abstract science fiction film that is clearly a work of, like, that's trying to be a work of art more than a work of entertainment. So A Quiet Place, the new film that's just come out, I recommend it on both fronts. Not that it completely succeeds on either front. I would give it, if I were to rate out of 4 stars, I'd say on both fronts it works 3 out of 4, because its use of sign language, its use of nonverbal communication, its use of really good, strong, astute acting that isn't showy, it isn't loud, like method acting. It's just acting, and it's effective acting. So it works on both fronts consistently and strongly. It's really rare that I can say that a work of commercial mainstream entertainment is truly worthwhile for everyone. And it's one of those rare films that is. So that's just super cool. It's the exact opposite of Ready Player One, which I can't recommend on either of those fronts. So Steven Spielberg's new film that's been ubiquitously advertised everywhere, which is this science fiction, dystopian, futuristic film that is very clearly, it's adapted from a popular young adult novel, which is kind of modeled on like a somewhat Bradburian, George Orwellian, future technology-ridden dystopia, where entertainment and I would say Aldous Huxley, obviously, too, is an influence, where entertainment and self-absorption and technology have taken over to the point where, society is sort of starting to implode on itself, and everyone in this society, rather than like watching Netflix, goes into or being on social media or on Netflix, goes into this virtual reality sphere that's kind of a combination of like World of Warcraft, Facebook, and like sort of like a virtual reality megaplex where literally you can 3D interact with each other. It's a marketplace, but everyone has an avatar where they, have like a fake secondary identity. And of course there's like a government conspiracy, and then there's this like big Byzantine plot that involves multitudes of quirky characters that are trying to like figure out what, like the mystery of this, the mystery of that, trying to get like, and it's just, it made me wonder what happened to Steven Spielberg to get to this, because the film doesn't work on any level. The scenes within the virtual reality sphere are hokey, they're hacked up, they don't work, they don't invest you in any of the characters. The visuals are just annoying. They're almost cringeworthy. And then all the material that happens on the outside of the virtual reality sphere are so minimally portrayed with any sort of realism or depth that the motives or the means of who these people really are behind their avatars or who their real life counterparts are, there just isn't any of the base logic. And not that I'm always hung up on logic, but the film is so illogical and there are so many holes that just would impede the story from happening as it happens. It just wouldn't make sense, because you cannot ignore the basic, I graduated from high school, so it's obvious that is a stupid, profoundly stupid plot point, or that just would not happen. I just thought it was insulting that Steven Spielberg would assume that an audience, even of teenagers, would find these characters interesting in either sphere that the film takes place, either in the virtual reality or in the real world, which is so just half thrown together, and there just isn't a dynamic, consistently involving visual language to the film.
Well, let me jump in there. I'm gonna go see it, and I'll see if I agree with you, Gabe.
Sure.
It sounds terrible, and actually, Steve Spice today told me the same thing. Even though he hasn't seen it yet, he said that he's heard bad things about this film.
Well, it's I will say this in its defense: the first 25 minutes are amazing. I would almost recommend seeing it just for the first 25 minutes, because the car race, I'll tell you, there were like 37 different moments where I was like, this is amazing. I was so pumped. I was hesitant going into it, but as soon as the first it's like the only car race, but there's a chase scene / a car race it has the magic of Spielberg. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's suspenseful. It's terrifying. It's beautiful. It's hair-raising. It's jaunty. It's unexpected. and then once the plot of the film unfolds, it's just a nightmare.
I wonder, do you think he's just making too many movies? Is that the problem? Because The Post just came out. How do you make that many movies at once?
The thing is Clint Eastwood has the same amount of prolific output every once in a while, where Clint Eastwood will make 2 films a year and then, continue on his usual run of making a movie every year to varying degrees of quality, depending on how you look at Clint Eastwood films. Woody Allen puts out a film and a half a year. There's
really, I think
he
just puts out 1 film a year, right?
I mean, that's even a prolific output. Especially if you're a writer-director and you're involved in the editing process. I mean, putting out 1 movie a year is even huge. So for these guys in their 70s and 80s, which they are, look at Martin Scorsese. I mean, he makes these giant films every few years, but he's always working on something. He's never idle. So I think you're absolutely right, Xav. In fact, there was a lot of talk about this.
Well, again, I'll have to answer by proxy. Our man Elvis has left the stage. So yes, but also these people. It's not like they're rebuilding the wheel. They've got huge dedicated staff. So it's like they're not painting the walls of the set. They're going to pick up the camera equipment or anything like that. It's it's a whole factory already in process.
No, thank you for that's so true, Mark. Thank you. This is not like like the New York Underground or something in the 80s, where these guys are making these movies with their hands. Oh man, Mark, what you did was you painted it's absolutely true. They got assistants. They have assistants for their assistants.
Right.
This machinery kind of does itself. But at the same time, there's still all these decisions that have to be made. And in the end of the day, when you're someone like Steven Spielberg, and you're a producer and a director, you have a certain amount of control that even other writer-directors don't have. Because you have this lineage, this reputation as being, Steven Spielberg has been, he was the head of Amblin Entertainment production company, the director of countless works of art and works of commerce, the producer of countless works of commerce, the head of one of the 3 heads of a film studio that existed for almost 20 years. As a businessman and as an artist, Spielberg is almost unrivaled in his output. I think in terms of the final number that he's had his name on in films where he has had a creative and literal say in what happens in the film, whether it's from a business standpoint or from a creative standpoint, I think he still holds the record. I think he's held the record for a long time, and he continues to hold the record as the most prolific filmmaker of all time. Just due to the quantity of films and TV shows that have his name as a marker on them as being produced by him. And I don't mean just like Steven Spielberg presents because his production company made it and he just, like he had nothing to do with the film. There is a fair amount of product that has the moniker Spielberg on it, and he has nothing to do with it. But in terms of the output where he actually did get involved, Steven Spielberg, to this day, he has this energy and this enthusiasm to make a film. There was a New York Times article that came out. There's a guy who, it's not A.O. Scott, but it's someone who is not a film writer who writes about Steven Spielberg about once every 5 years for the New York Times. And he writes about him in the New York Times, in the New York Times Magazine, not in the arts and leisure section. So he writes about Spielberg from the perspective of a journalist, purely as someone who is doing investigative journalism. And I remember in 2002 when he first interviewed him, the headline was "The Mainstream Independent That Spielberg Has Become." And it was looking at the films that Spielberg was working on at the time, like Minority Report and AI, and how he was making these really daring, really dark, really seedy films about, murder mysteries and human nature and just vicious horror, just going into this real untraditional territory that was not what you would consider Spielbergian. And in later years, he's continued to write about him. And he's like, you come onto a Steven Spielberg set and there's an energy. There's just something that is just alive and profound. You feel like you're on this guy's been on the sets of many movies, many TV shows. And he's like, it's like the enthusiasm that I've seen with 23, 24, 25, 26-year-old directors in terms of emanating the vitality of what they're working on their first or their second film. They're in that youthful vigor of their life where they're under deadline, they're under pressure, they have all this monetary pressure on them saying, okay, guys, come on, we're on a set, we're making a movie, let's go, let's get this done, let's get this lighting done, let's get these shots ready, let's go, okay, we got it, let's move on, what's next? What are we doing? Why isn't everyone on the same page? Spielberg almost always, no matter how big of a film he's dealing with, finishes his films ahead of schedule, as does Clint Eastwood. They usually finish ahead of schedule. They usually finish under budget, which is why they get the opportunities to make the films, the quantity of films with the varying, topics and storylines and the scripts, just a whole range of genre that they have is because they are consistently the studios think, even if we lose money on this product, it's still a Clint Eastwood film. It came in under budget. It's modestly budget. Steven Spielberg, too. You would think that considering the type of product that you get in the end of the day, that Steven Spielberg films would be twice as expensive as they are. Saving Private Ryan, I believe, is like a $65 million film, which is amazing when you look at that finished product. Even though, yes, that film was made in 1998, at the time, that was still under budget from the average mainstream Hollywood film that was coming out around that time. And he finished that film ahead of schedule. And you look at that finished product, just a bit. I mean, you can say what you want about that film. I have many problems with it. But as a visual work of art, that film is very precise. If there's ever a film that I would say is the Spielberg film, I would probably say it's that for many reasons. But, at the very least, Ready Player One is the ultimate Spielberg failure. It was really sad to watch this movie, to have this sort of moment of reckoning with one of my heroes. The reason that I became enamored with films is because of Steven Spielberg. Dick Tracy, the film that Warren Beatty directed in 1990, was the film experience. But as a filmmaker, as this legend, the bigger story, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I started to watch Spielberg films, and as I got older, got to be about 8 or 9 years old, I consistently saw something beautiful and powerful and magical in Spielberg films that other films just did not have. And as a child, they worked on this level where it was like an adult speaking to a child, still as a mature adult, but in a language that a child could appreciate as a child, but also understand the way that adults were speaking without being insulted, without being talked down to, where there was something that was universal, that was not sort of broken, where there wasn't this barrier between adult cinema and child cinema. Jaws works on that level. Even the films that he's produced, Back to the Future works on that level. E.T. works on that level. Numerous other movies. Jurassic Park, definitely. If there's ever a film that speaks to kids and adults on this universal plane of cinema, I think it's that. That is actually a hugely unheralded and underappreciated work of art in terms of the way that it looks at blockbuster entertainment and the way it tells its story. That's a film that's remembered for special effects and for dinosaurs, and it really isn't looked at for the fact that is it's a film that's a very superior Spielberg product that has a lot of the Spielberg motifs and tropes in it. Has a lot of great moments. Jeff Goldblum's fantastic in it. And it really is just definitive of the standard high-quality Spielberg product.
I want to say something here is also definitively... Oh, here's something that's definitively high quality. And Xav, could you add to that, please?
You caught me off guard there.
Yeah,
Mark.
I'm sorry about that.
But switching gears a little bit, I'm interested in Spielberg, and it's definitely, it's funny because I talk on Steve Spice's show, and somehow we talk about Spielberg a lot. Well, he comes up a lot, which is weird because as a young person growing up, I'm a little older than you, Gabe.
Yep.
And so for me, I grew up, kind of countercultural, with sort of like a very skeptical of anything mainstream. Like, I was kind of skeptical of. I've always been skeptical of Spielberg's work because it's so incredibly,
you and I have talked at length about what a contrived film Schindler's List is.
Right, Schindler's List.
About that.
Yeah. Which now I feel like I'm toning down my cynicism about some of that kind of thing over time. But yeah, for some reason he keeps coming up as a subject of conversation. And I told Steve Spice, I said, Spielberg is kind of like the Norman Rockwell of cinema. And Steve Spice just completely disagreed with me. He said that was the most
That's actually funny.
the worst analogy he'd ever heard.
Well,
and then
I couldn't agree with you more, Zav. I think
you hit
that
the
is
nail on the head, Zav.
Yeah, that's like the most accurate and profound analogy I've heard in a long time.
Because then I was watching that documentary about Spielberg, and it actually came up. Someone actually said, "Yeah, he's sort of the Norman Rockwell of Hollywood."
The dude has a knack for contradicting some of the wisest insights ever. It's just amazing.
What did you think of that Spielberg documentary? That is actually the only documentary that I put on my best of last year list.
It was great. It's a great documentary.
Yep, absolutely. I told Mark about it. And in fact, I'm glad you brought up a Spielberg documentary. Mark, if you can get your hands on it, it probably won't be available for about 6 months. But I just got done watching, I watch every documentary that HBO puts out, every HBO documentary film, because their product is just, if there's anything that HBO does that's worth watching, it's their documentary films. Like everything else, you can praise it, you can hate it, whatever. The world will go on. But their documentaries are underwatched, and that's a crime. And I just got done watching a 2-part documentary about Gary Shandling called The Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling, which is about his life as a comic, but also his influence as a mentor to countless, I'm talking dozens of the comic minds that have shaped contemporary comedy and have shaped contemporary comedy writing and just all these various, just countless names in contemporary culture for the last 40 years. And it's a contemplative, thoughtful, intelligent film that looks at a very neurotic, very intelligent, very precise artist who was mostly critical of himself. And it looks at his upbringing. It looks at his the way he looks at life, and it also looks at how he tried to come to peace with himself and was really never able to.
Yeah, and his relationship with his father is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting document. Judd Apatow directed it, actually. It's a very strong film. It's a very it's just another one of the standard high quality HBO films output. I watched all 4.5 hours of it. I can't say that I'm a giant fan of Gary Shandling, the man himself.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the other film. I don't know if it talks about his father at all. I haven't seen that.
No. It actually talked about his mother. All those HBO documentary films talk about their parents. Every subject is always like, their tortured relationship with their father, their tortured relationship with their one-legged uncle. There's always that thread. But the Gary Shandling documentary, highly recommended stuff. Mark, I haven't seen it yet, but there's an Arthur Miller documentary that just came out on HBO Films.
I can roll with that, my man.
Yep, it's directed by his daughter, Rebecca Miller, who's an accomplished filmmaker all her own, and it's compiled from, because she documented his life very, she would make these short documentary films for HBO about once every 5 years or once every 6 years. She would shoot stuff on video, and then they'd release a documentary short, like a 20-minute documentary. Well, they compiled all those documentary shorts into one film. It's called Arthur Miller Writer. I haven't seen it yet, but I just wanted to tell you about it. I wanted to tell our listeners about it, because that's the kind of stuff that we're into.
Wait, is that that service you talked about? Because I'm almost think I saw that. When's this from, my man?
That's on HBO. HBO produced that film.
Okay, I wonder if was that a few years ago?
It's been, like I said, HBO has been producing documentaries about Arthur Miller every couple of years. Every 7 or 8 years, they would hire Rebecca Miller to release a newer short film, because she was shooting extensive footage about her father.
Okay.
Throughout his entire life, because she's been into filmmaking for a long time. She's directed, I think, 3 or 4 films. The only film of hers besides this that I can name off the top of my head is a really interesting romantic comedy that's more of an experiment in narrative storytelling.
Okay, well, Gabe, I'm actually going to have to hire myself to tell you that this is the close of the show.
Oh, okay. Oh, man, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Here we are. Well,
I'm just watching the clock, dude.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, man. Xav Leplae back in action. Super cool. We always love having you, Xav. This is where the show started with Xav Leplae, and man, it's always cool to have you on. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah,
awesome.
Thanks, Gabe.
Right,
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll see you. Bye bye.
Okay.
All right, Xav Leplae, Gabe Van Handel with 10 seconds to go. I was watching that clock. I would have brought those faders down so quick it'd make your head spin. I had no fear on that account. We will be on at the same time next week on WXR WLP 104.1 FM Milwaukee. To hear past episodes, visit riverwestradio.com/host and click Cinema Fireside.